Here we go again. We have arrived at the number 6 spot. Peter, now the decisions are getting really tough. We've put Anatoly Karpov at number 6, born in 1951 in the then Soviet Union, which makes him 69 years old today. What are your thoughts on Karpov?
Well, he's a great fan of him growing up. He was the dominant player at the time, and renewing chess in many ways is his sort of positional style. He has his World Championship record is obviously quite big. He has 3 wins, but one of them is a default against Fischer in '75. Then he has 2 draws, or rather 1 cancelled match where he's leading 5-3 with Gary, but they play an enormous amount of games, and it's sort of cancelled by Campomanes. And then he draws another match in Seville and loses 3 to Gary. So his sort of score is equal in the sense of +3, 2 draws, and -3. Then,
that's not counting the FIDE things against Kamsky and...
No, that we have generally not done it, but it's true. He beats Kamsky in a match in 1996 when after Short and Kasparov sort of breaks away. The losers play a match, which is TİME. Well, I think Timman plays Kamsky, right? And then Kamsky, he also beats Timman, actually, right? So he has even more FIDE wins, I forgot. He beats Timman, he beats Kamsky, and then he beats Vichy in 1998. But that's also, Vichy has to play a 128-player knockout tournament to qualify, and then the next week he plays Karpov, who's been sitting there rest. So I don't know how we should judge these. Generally, these sort of purely FIDE events, during the schism, we haven't counted too much. So you can argue that Karpov has 6 World Championship wins or 3 World Championship wins, with one of them being a default. So there is a bit of a blur there. And you can look at the world ranking. He has 8 years, 4 months as world number 1, which obviously is very good. But what stands out is that he has 14 years and 10 months as number 2. So for more than 23 years, he's been in top 2, which is actually very extraordinary. So he has, I think I have seen people make arguments that, Karpov is not the best player ever, but who could be top 2 or top 3, because his distance to the rest, except Kasparov, was very big for a really long amount of time. You can see that for 23 years, he's actually in the top 2, which is amazing sports performance. But I think our criteria is that to get to the absolute top layer of our sort of pyramid of this Hall of Fame, you need to be completely dominant to your surroundings. And, he's just in a sort of bad luck that Kasparov just comes to succeed him, right? And in that way. Also, maybe I would say, is it some bad luck that he doesn't get to play Fischer?
It's very hard to say. If he beats Fischer, that's, of course, a historic achievement. If he doesn't, it's one of the big what ifs. I've been wondering a little if we're biased, because at least in my lifetime it was usually Karpov-Kasparov, with Kasparov winning in the end, and I didn't see the 10 years from 75 to 85 where I guess he's dominant. It's hard to say how good the competition is. There's obviously a lot of players, but I don't know. It might be because I missed the matches. These Korchnoi matches, also reading the books, they never tickled me in a way some of the other matches did, but I'm not quite sure that's an objective thing.
The first one in Baguio was obviously a thriller, but of course it's a sign that a rather aging Korchnoi actually managed to qualify for this one and for the next one. That gives a sign of the competition maybe not being peaked to that extent. Actually, when we are debating the what ifs, what's your take on what would have happened in '75?
I honestly don't know. I've read plenty of takes that, some argue Fischer knew how good Karpov was and therefore decided to dodge it. But Fischer has also, 72 is not that long ago, right? When he's on this absolutely historic level. And I'm not sure how his mental health and where his head was at in 75, but he's been a very tremendous force. And the young Karpov did not have all that experience at the highest level yet, I would guess so.
No.
Who knows? If I had to, I don't know.
I have always been in the camp where I think Karpov would have won. I'm still probably, but I'm not too sure, to be honest. As you say, we might be very biased at what happens later. I mean, and aging Karpov Korchnoi managed to put Karpov to the brink and such. It's hard to say. Maybe the likely favorite, it would be also, I mean, would Karpov win? I think it would more likely that Fischer would withdraw at some point then and such, right?
Yeah, who knows?
Maybe the match not finishing is actually the favorite if we could choose one result, right? It's hard to say, but Karpov would have beaten him eventually. But if he would have managed in 75, I'm less certain now than I was then. Of course, there is too many ifs in this story, but I think it's a relevant point that one thing is Karpov gets hurt by playing Gary, but also that he doesn't get to shine against Fischer at some point, right? I mean, we are somehow missing this duel of taking down a really big one in his collection. So I think history is a bit rough to Karpov in that respect, and he has other pluses.
No, that should say that he's not much inferior, at the very least, to Kasparov in their 80s matches. No, he's up 5-0 in that first match. Then he comes within throwing distance of winning 2 of the other matches. So those are just gigantic struggles.
No, I think also at that point, Karpov was a dominant force in the openings, but basically to return to the Kasparov matches. I mean, we have Karpov at 6, but I think we have chosen 2 game fragments where, I mean, it feels like coin flips. And if one of them flips the other way, Karpov might have been, number 1. I mean, then Kasparov doesn't happen to the same extent, right? Here he plays rook takes d1.
Yeah, looks like a good move.
Yeah, but I think computers now and the people back then was saying that a6 is basically finishing the game. There is just no reasonable defense. Well, the threat is basically to queen, and you can back it up with the rook. As far as I remember, no way of satisfactory defending against this. And I mean, this point the score was 5-1. So Kasparov had won. I mean, if we remember the match, I think Karpov took an early lead with 4-0, quite early. Then Gary managed to make a lot of draws, but then I think he won a game. And then he lost one to make it 5-1. And then there was, again, another phase with tons of draws. And then there was the collapse of Karpov. But
it wasn't 5-0?
It actually wasn't 5-0 as far as I saw. This surprised me. But or maybe it was 5-0, but then he got to 5-1 before this one happened. You're probably right. That at this point, the score is 5-1. So I don't think this was a shot for Karpov to win 6-0. But a6, it finishes the match. And, Gary will go down in history as having lost this. Probably Gary would come back, right? But still, it's a completely different thing and such. And a6, I think computers is giving something like bishop b3 as a move. But I think you can just play knight takes b3. And, you can't take back because of a7 and rook e8 check. So you have to put the rook on a4. And then, as far as I remember, I forgot what is the good move now. Probably knight c5, and you get the rook to e7 and the pawn to a7, and it's just a winning ending.
Looks convincing.
Yeah, like this. I mean, the match could just have been all with a crushing score. Karpov would have beaten a young Gary, and that would have been it, basically. And I mean, this must be completely, do you take on d1 or do you calculate and play a6, right?
It's one of those where
it's hard
intuitively doesn't look like this pawn is queening, no? So you could just make rook d1, play a rook d1 without thinking.
Exactly. I don't know the thinking times and such, right? But no, it doesn't intuitively. But on the other hand, intuitively, it looks like that. What do you want to say? Well, after the a7 is a pretty big threat, right?
No, I understand. Once you spot it, it just feels like the bishop can stop it. The rook should be able to spot
it. What happens after bishop a4? Actually.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's a bit of calculation.
That's not what we came here for.
No idea.
Are you calculating or frozen?
I'm calculating, but I could be frozen as well. This is embarrassing.
Oh no, a7, bishop c6, rook e6, something like that. And the bishop doesn't have a lot of squares, does it?
Wow. Yeah, you're good.
Goes to A8 with
no, I mean, again,
now you actually are frozen. I shouldn't have said that. Will Peter come back? Will he not? It's anybody's guess at this point. There he is.
There he is, yeah. I mean, so, yeah, I was just so stunned with your tactical abilities. And, yeah. No, this could happen. And then some years later in Seville, Karpov get another completely clean shot at winning.
Yeah.
So, well, Seville was an extremely interesting match. And it gets down to being 11-11, and Karpov is wide in game 23. And he actually managed to outplay Kasparov statistically in a beautiful game and gets the score to 12-11. So he just needs a draw in the last game.
This is the position.
Yeah. Even if you want to look at the full game, I mean, we debated it. It's seen as a classic way on how to win in sort of must-win situations, right? But 6 moves ago, they just have a symmetrical position where it's very hard to believe Gary can actually win this or Karpov can lose this. But now he takes back on C8. And then Queen B5 is apparently a winning move, according to my computer.
Yeah.
Threatens E8. I don't know what happens after Knight D6. Probably you poke it with something like Queen C6, right? And then either you get access to E8 and F7 and such. Well, it seems reasonable. But Kasparov played Queen to D1.
Queen B5 is also by far the most obvious move. No, Queen D1 is trying to be smart.
Yeah, it's the same thing. You're trying to invade. Well, you can say that like this. You're entering D8, while the other one, Queen B5, there is the move Knight D6.
Yeah.
I think they were
there's Knight C5, which they basically just both missed.
I mean, this is before the increment time, so the time pressure was heavy. I think even as far as I know the anecdote that they announced that Karpov had lost on time, and there was a wild applause. Then they announced that he had lost on time anyway, and the other half were applauding and such. But he played Queen D1, but Knight C5, the game is just a draw, right? I mean, the problem is Queen D8 takes. There is a very simple check, winning back the knight. So Kasparov is not lost as far as I remember. There is some way to make a draw, but
sports-wise, doesn't make a difference. No draw or loss.
Yeah, winning chances. As far as I remember, he can forget about. So what happens after Knight C6? Oh, sorry, Knight C5 is played, of course. Yeah. You cannot help but feel pity for Karpov in that sense, right? It's 2 such big chances where just one move makes a considerable difference on chess history and his own legacy and such, right? Again, it's hard to feel pity for Karpov, but this is how the top sport is, right? But I think twice he gets a bad bounce against him where he could just as well go his way.
Yeah. And here he's in trouble, and Kasparov wins this.
Yeah, he wins a beautiful ending with 4 versus 3 on the king side, but that is actually, I think it's actually winning by now, more or less.
Yeah.
I mean, Kasparov analyzed this in great detail, and it's very impressive and such. But, yeah.
No, yeah. In a way, I'm not sure if it's sad, because obviously he's had a tremendous career. I think won more tournaments than anybody. And yeah, it's just he doesn't get the bounce in these matches against Kasparov, or he's way up there. Even without, if he retires in 1985, he still belongs very, very highly on this list. And yeah, it's a debate with the names that will come right after him on this list. Things are close, but yeah, we decided on number 6 because, well, he did happen to lose or not win all these matches against Kasparov.
Yeah, he does have, a huge part of his career as number 2, and somehow, well, yeah, the next ones are number 1. I think that's why it is. But there is people making a strong case for that. Karpov is, if you look compared to sort of others, except Kasparov, he's more dominating than anyone else in history, and there is some truth in that. But, well, we think 6 is correct.
Yeah, amazing player also. Great chess legacy. I'm not sure there's one concept you associate with Karpov necessarily, like maneuvering and just, outplaying people. But I'm not sure there's this one thing he's just incredibly good at.
No, he's very all-round. Also, later we get to see him as more positional. But okay, he's facing Kasparov. I mean, he has plenty of great attacking games in his youth and such, right? And also in his youth, he was dominating a theoretical figure. Then again, he gets pitted up against Kasparov, who's maybe the best prepared chess player in the world and such, right? So, I mean, well, he becomes sort of an anti-thing to get Kasparov's style. And it's not that Karpov necessarily was wrong, as Kramnik showed later. There was a way to derail that kind of style. So, no, a really fantastic player. As I said, one of my childhood idols and such. I think many from my generation grew up with Karpov as the biggest authority and inspiration.
All right, that's Anatoly Karpov at number 6. See you on the next.